morning and welcome to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Shane Matthews, John Cornell on a Monday morning.
All right.
Coming
What
to
a
you
big
live
week.
from the
Yeah.
Gainesville, Florida area. And JC, big weekend in sports.
huge.
I mean, we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yes.
Also today at 8:30, we'll be joined by WRUF Steve Russell, who has his daily show, Sports Scene, but he also is a play-by-play for Gator Baseball Network with Jeff Cardozo. So we'll get his thoughts on what happened
I
this past weekend.
started. Oh, there you are. Oh, God.
JC has no idea what he's doing.
I'm
with his
doing what
phone.
Freddie told me to do, and it's backfiring. All right, I'm not doing it anymore. Facebook.
You're 0 for 2 when you've done that, by the way. 0 for 2. 0 for 2.
That's a bad batting percentage. What a weekend, QB. Steve Russell will talk about the wonderful Florida baseball weekend that was had down in Miami. We'll touch on that here momentarily. We had that big boxing match that I'll get into for a few minutes, and then the basketball team with a very good effort up at Kentucky, which was kind of what I was hoping for, QB, when we were talking about it last week on the show, was that, just go up there. I don't know, you can expect to win, but realistically, were they going to win? I don't know. They had a chance, and that was the thing, is that I wanted them to play as well as they could, and that's probably one of their best performances in a loss of the season.
Yeah, I thought they played well. I thought they played hard. We went through that drought scoring the basketball for about 5 minutes that really hurt us. We took a lead. I couldn't remember if it was a 5-point lead or a 7-point lead, and then quickly had a 9-0 run himself. He hit 3 straight 3-pointers, and then Rupp erupted. So, it is what it is. Florida's going to make the basketball. They're going to make the NCAA tournament. They come home. They got to play. I believe we got LSU rolling in.
Yeah,
town.
LSU's
LSU
next.
is
9 o'clock. Is it 8 o'clock? 8 o'clock game? 9 o'clock.
Wednesday night.
It's late. It's a night game, though. It'll be on television. And, of course, that's a big one for us, for the Gators. The LSU Tigers are a team that is beatable. Florida had them on the ropes, almost took them down in Baton Rouge. But it's a big opportunity for the Gators to bolster that resume. It's very important that they play well at home. Of course, I think I'd rather play them at home than anywhere. It's a 9 o'clock game. Woo! So
Is it Tuesday or Wednesday night?
It's a Wednesday night game, 9 o'clock. Gosh, that's late in the middle of the week. I really don't like those games. I got to be honest with you. I don't like that late start, but hopefully the fans will be there and
Routed Reptiles will be there.
Well, there's no doubt the students will be there, but that's tough. All right, so that game is alongside another game that's at 9 o'clock, and then there's one at 8:30. So for some reason, the SEC is getting that late slot on Wednesday. On Tuesday, we've got some games coming up also in the league. Ole Miss, the Land Sharks are at Auburn, Kentucky, at Texas A&M. Your Aggies have really started to become a dangerous team, even though
I've told you, Buzz Williams should be the coach of the year.
Well, listen, they won another one this weekend after beating Alabama and another team. I think they're on a 3-game or 4-game winning streak right now.
They destroyed Mississippi State.
Yes, they blew out Mississippi State. They've won 3 straight. So they beat Mississippi State by 12 at home. They scored 87 points. All of a sudden, the Aggies have decided to become a spoiler or a team to keep your eye on. They're 14-12, 7th in the SEC. They'll be a tournament team in the SEC tournament that could be very dangerous. So watch out for the Aggies. Just telling you. You've got them playing Kentucky on Tuesday night at home. So maybe they'll have 10,000 fans in that arena. Alabama, Mississippi State, very important game for both of those teams as they are trying to get off or onto the bubble. I don't know which. It could be both. And then the Land Sharks are at Auburn. So we have, by the way, a Land Shark highlight for your play of the day.
Yeah, and that's going to be after the first break.
Can't wait for that. Wait till
he wasn't listening, was he, Taylor?
Well, I'm trying to gather thoughts here and make sure that my technology isn't interrupting our show here.
Well, it already did.
But wait till you see our best restoration play of the day. I mean, it's the best one we've had. It is clearly the best play of the day we've had. You want to see that here in a few minutes on our after the break.
Well, there's a big weekend for Gator sports, obviously. We'll talk about first what happened Friday night. Gator Gymnastics wins another SEC championship. Women's basketball, JC. They upset 22nd ranked Arkansas yesterday. So Cam Newbauer and his girls are starting to play pretty well.
good to see.
Men's swimming wins their 8th straight SEC championship. The girls come in second.
Okay.
And then obviously we know what baseball did. Softball, first of all, softball goes 4-1.
4-1 out west.
They lose a heartbreaker to the number 1 team in the country, UCLA. We made a bunch of errors, which is not errors and wild pitches cost us the game against UCLA. But they sit at 16-2. So
we're getting 4 wins. I mean, I think we were saying 3-2 would be great, but 4-1, beating Northwestern.
Well, they beat 3
beating
teams
Arizona,
in the top 25.
beating Arizona State, and basically right there with the Bruins, Lady Bruins. So I think it was a very successful trip.
Absolutely it was.
it
And
was.
then we all know what happened down at Coral Gables.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because that
Gators
to me,
sweep the Hurricanes.
I mean, that they have just absolutely owned Miami in the last 5 to 10 years.
Well, do you
in
want to hear
baseball.
something?
It is
You want to hear a great
unbelievable.
stat,
They
JC?
always beat the Canes. Yeah.
Between the semis and the Canes, the last 35 games,
Yeah.
Gators are 31-4.
That's called taking over the state of Florida. And UCF's a good little team, and South Florida's a good little team, and FAU's a good little team, and on any Tuesday night, yeah. But when it comes to the weekends and you bring out the best players, pitchers, I should say, the Gators have absolutely taken over the state of Florida in baseball. Now, they're going to play Florida State here soon. Florida State with a new coach, the son of Mike Martin.
They
But
lost to somebody.
They lost, yeah.
Who was that they lost their opening game to?
I know what you're talking about. I know they did, but I don't know who it was right off
was
the
like
top.
a
But
nobody.
It was yeah. But this thing with Miami over the weekend, they were all jacked up down in South Florida with 4,400 people at their glorious Marklight Stadium for the Gators to come in town. They were going to smoke Florida, right? They were number 1 in the country. Florida came in 2. In one particular poll, Florida will clearly be number 1 when the poll comes out this week. First game set the tone in my mind, QB, because Miami had 3 hits. 3 hits in game 1. That's it. 3 hits. Florida pitching was incredibly efficient. Ben Specht was just tremendous and got the win for Florida.
Well, Tommy Mace did most of the
Tommy
work.
Mace did all the work, right? But the relief pitching was great. 2-1 winners. They won this game in 11 innings. They took the Canes down in game 1. It was a tremendous effort to just get the tone of the series, down there. I like Tommy Mace and I like the 8 strikeouts. I just like the way the whole pitching staff, Christian Scott, Nick Pogue, they really pitched well, and Ben gets the win in the game. Now that means you set it up for game 2. And game 2 was one of those games where it didn't look good at the beginning, but then the Gators erupt. Did you see the box score for game 2?
Well,
QB?
here's what happened in game 2. I'll tell you what happened in game 2. We were down to our last strike. We were losing 2-1.
Right, 2-1 in the 9th.
Yeah, down to our last strike, and we rally, force extras, and we win the ball game.
And they win 7-4. They get 5 in the 10th. Now, part of the problem for me, and I'm sure many fans, if you're just kind of a casual fan, and I can become a lot more than a casual fan if this team is really that good.
Well, they're good.
Well,
But we
part
all
of the
know you
problem
love
was
a front runner.
Well, part of the problem is that you couldn't watch it anywhere. It wasn't on TV.
You could.
ACC plus something,
Yeah.
whatever. Nobody's got it, all right? And so you're not going to sit around the house at night listening to radio anymore. Now, you did back in the day, and maybe if you're a diehard Gator fan, absolutely you did, and Steve Russell will tell us
I'll
about it.
listen to it.
But, well, you're diehard. But there's a lot of folks who aren't diehards who are just casual fans that want to know how they did and so forth, and they had to look online to watch it, or they had to see it because they were either watching the boxing match or they were out on Saturday night drinking or whatever they were doing.
Here's the solution.
Yeah.
As you're driving around town, whatever you're doing, whether you're going to the movie or to a restaurant or something, you can listen to the game. When you get back in your car,
Until you
listen
go to
it.
the movie.
Yeah,
then when you walk in
listen-
the movie for 2 hours, you miss the game.
and then you pull up your phone and check out Twitter.
Exactly, but I'm just saying, if it's on the television, maybe you don't go to the movies, QB.
That's true.
So the point is that they get 7-4 win. Nobody saw it, and that's okay because again, Miami had 4,100 people down there at their wonderful Marklight Stadium and got beat again. And then game 3. What happens in game 3? Sweep. They sweep them. So
How many people were at the game?
4,100 on
That's all
game
that.
2.
Well, that
That's
stadium's
it.
terrible.
That's
and
what I'm
it's a
saying.
dump.
They're so proud of it. The iconic Marklight Stadium, right? Whatever. They got smoked again, and Florida's now 7-0. Miami's 4-2. Nobody saw it, we heard it. If you listened, Steve Russell will talk about it at 8:30 at the bottom of the hour, and that was a big moment, I think, during the weekend. Was Florida's baseball team just absolutely dominating in that second game and third game, winning the first game 2-1 in extras, and coming down to the last strike and pulling it out. Tremendous job, Kevin O'Sullivan. Good job, Florida Gators. It would not shock me to see them lose on a Tuesday night against Siena or FAU or whoever they play. But the thing is,
that's going to happen.
That's going to happen, right? So the thing is, that's baseball, folks. Just know that's how sometimes
do you know why
it
it
works.
happens?
Because of the pitching.
Correct.
You can't throw your guys during the middle of the week. A lot of times, you have to throw other guys. You have to protect your pitchers and get them ready for the weekend forward, and that's okay. That's how college baseball is. But they may be good enough. 5-3 was the score in the Sunday game, and then they left town. And Miami's in tatters right now. Now, they play FAMU, Florida A&M, on Tuesday. They then come back for the game with Stetson on Wednesday. Both games at 6:30 at Perry Field. Actually, no, Stetson's game is at DeLand. And then on the weekend, the Troy Trojans come down. So if you wonder, why is it that Florida has these teams like FAMU, Stetson, Troy, FAU, you know, some of these Jacksonville.
Well, a lot of it has to do with timing and your scheduling, but a lot of it has to do with travel, JC.
Travel, yeah.
It costs money
It sure
for
does.
these teams to
so
travel.
these teams take buses.
Well, think about who you just said. They're all
Stetson,
bus rides.
FAMU, Troy. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's fine. Okay, so then we get, eventually at some point down the road in March, just about when March Madness is about to kick in for the basketball team, the Florida State Seminoles will be in town on March 10th. That's a Tuesday night. And then that is followed by the Georgia Bulldogs starting the SEC slate for the Florida Gators here on March 13th, a 3-game series in Gainesville. That will be followed the following weekend by another 3-game series in Gainesville with the Kentucky Wildcats. So baseball is here, it's on, and the Gators are good.
We got a text here. If you want to text us on the Titan MRI text line, it's 352-353-7465. Don't forget, at 8:30, we're going to have Steve Russell talking Gator baseball. Good morning, guys. Too many turnovers at Rupp Saturday night, but that's what Kentucky forces you into.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout-out to the baseball team for sweeping Miami. Anytime we can beat the Canes in any sport, it's great. Thanks for the text, Daryl. I agree.
And Ken does make a good point on Facebook Live. Ken Sagini says he watched 2 of the 3 games on the ESPN app, so I didn't take into account that you can do that. And
now you know, JC.
But ESPN app, you don't, if you just have to find a way to watch it. I guess the traditional methods sometimes don't apply for some of these games, and I get it that there's millions of games out there. It's not easy to show them all. But you would think if baseball wants to be, a mainstream or a mainline type of sport that people don't just kind of brush off until May, you got to show 1 versus 2. Or 2 versus 3, or 3 versus 1.
It was 1 versus 2 in one poll, but we're like ranked 7th in another poll.
Okay, 7th, sure. Great. I'd love to see 6 teams right now that go down there to Miami and sweep them. I don't think you do.
Well,
but
there's a
whatever
bunch in
the case
SEC
may
that
be,
can.
whatever the case may be, that might be true. It's early, but you do want to put those 2 teams on TV if you're a baseball purist in college baseball.
And on the PGA Tour, Patrick Reed wins again on tour. He's a good player, man. People don't like him, but he's a good player.
Well, I mean, he's a Ryder Cup guy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the guy can play. He's a player. But I don't know if he is one of the more popular guys. What did the caddy say?
Well, I think he said that people do like him. I think a lot of the general public, some like, some don't, but he's a heck of a player. And now they moved to the Florida swing, and I think the Honda Classic
Fort
is
Lauderdale,
this week.
Fort Lauderdale area down there. It's where the Bear Trap is, 16, 17, and 18. They say that's the toughest 3 finishing holes in golf. But who knows? I've never played. Have you played it?
I have, years ago.
Is it the
It's been a
toughest
while.
finishing 3 holes in golf?
I don't really remember. I don't think it's very tough when we go play it.
Why? Oh, because they moved the tees up, right?
Well,
They're not
they
hitting-
grow rough. It's a resort course.
That's no doubt. And you were there.
I've
at
been
the
there.
resort.
Yeah, I've played there several times.
Several.
Yeah. So we're going to take our first time out. When we come back, we're going to show you the play of the day, which
gotta see
happened over
this,
the weekend.
folks.
It was outstanding.
Yeah.
And then remember, at 8:30, we're going to have Steve Russell talking Gator baseball. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Gators Dockside, wings, ribs, seafood, and beer. The best restoration, Masters of Disaster.
Bob in trouble, gets rid of it. Oh, big hit.
Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
Our touchdown sponsors are Radware Promotional Materials, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Miapa Latin Cafe, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Okita America Martial Arts and After School, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Wrap Spot, Cold Stone Creamery, Gator Dominoes.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. John Cornell, Shane Matthews. And folks, hey, Celebration Point's where the Gators come to celebrate. With premium brands like Bass Pro Shop, Tommy Hilfiger, Hotel Indigo, Nike, Medici's, Regal Cinemas, and coming soon, the HBC's new restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We will see you at Celebration Point where the Gators come to celebrate. We're going to go now to...
Oh, this is great. Watch
it's
this.
our play of the day, which is brought to you by the best restoration, whether flood, fire, or Mother Nature call, the master of disasters today. This is happened at the Ole Miss basketball game this past weekend.
There she is.
84-year-old Ann Wakefield makes a 90-footer.
Well, I mean, there it goes.
That's looking really good.
That's a fast putt.
Bam.
And there's the shark. The Mississippi Sharks
That's right.
are celebrating
The
with Ann
84-year-old Ann Wakefield
Ann
makes
Wakefield.
a 94-footer
on a glass.
to win a new
I mean,
car.
it's like fast as glass, folks. If
And
you
look
ever
at
try
the
putting-
advertising we gave Cannon Motors. of
Oh,
Mississippi
Cannon
right
Motors. Up there, the motors of Mississippi. Hey, I tell you, that is unbelievable. Try putting a golf ball on your tile floor or on your Pergo or something like that.
She went
This
90
is
94
faster than
feet.
that. And she goes the distance and bags it. Good for Ann. And good for the fans there at Ole Miss, home of the Land Sharks. I tell you, and they are, QB. I know you don't want to say. I misspoke earlier before the break talking about the Kentucky-Florida baseball series. It's in Lexington. If I said Gainesville, that was a mistake. The Georgia series is in Gainesville, followed by a JU game, and then the Gators travel on March 20th, 21st, and 22nd up to Lexington. QB, go ahead.
Well, we got a text here on the Titan MR text
Fire
line.
away.
It comes from G's. What a fight Saturday night.
Oh, the
Fury absolutely mauled Wilder. The coaching
was.
was the difference. 100% Wilder's corner had no answer other than take a step back, then throw a right.
Well, he couldn't land it either because he was outboxed. You know, people fall in love with the haymaker thrower. They love the guys who can put you asleep.
You loved him.
Whatever. He was undefeated.
So was the other guy.
Right. So we were rooting for Wilder at first because, you know, he's a Tuscaloosa guy. But this guy, Fury, absolutely took him apart. 7th round TKO. He wins the WBC heavyweight title now, and he defended his lineal title. So basically, heavyweight boxing, I think, is back, and it sets up for a rematch somewhere down the road.
I don't think
this was ugly, though, because
It's going to be the same the next fight.
it might be, but the Wilder will have to get better. Obviously, he'll have to learn how to box, maybe. This thing was never even... And listen, this is the second time they fought. The first time they fought, he knocked Fury down twice. Fury obviously learned from that fight, and I would expect Wilder will learn from this mauling, and that was exactly what it was. You're right. And if you watched it like I did for some reason, and you stayed up late for some reason, and you actually watched it for some reason.
What time was it over?
It was over around 12:45. Now, of course, this is out in Vegas, so that's not very late. That's only 9:45. But the entire East Coast of America was dreary-eyed, and it was not much. It was not a fight. He won every round, I think, except the second, and the second was basically a draw. And he just showed that he was better at the boxing game than Wilder. Wilder comes in, and I understand why the corner threw the towel in, QB. They threw in the towel because he had never been in this position before. He had been undefeated, knocked out just about everybody he had fought except Fury. And so certainly they weren't, and Wilder himself wasn't ready for something like that. And Wilder looked confused as to why they threw in the towel. But the guy has a ruptured eardrum. He just absolutely got blown to bits. And Fury is kind of that, they call him the Gypsy King, and that's not really a boxing moniker. That is a way of life moniker. I mean, he was licking the guy's blood, okay? I'm not kidding you. He was licking the dude's blood when they were, all close and together like this. Mm-hmm. And it was hideous. But this guy took over the boxing world on Saturday night. So if you're into that, I don't know, but there were probably good numbers because of the dual arrangement.
Who was the favorite in this
between
fight?
Fox and ESPN to show it?
Was Wilder the favorite?
The Wilder was minus 120, and Fury was even money, so they were basically even up. But Wilder got a little bit more money on him. He lost, and it wasn't close, folks. It would have been a knockout if they hadn't thrown in the towel. So they threw in the towel. That sets up for a third match. I don't have any doubt they'll do it. If you can make $35 million for one night of boxing, you're going to have a third fight. Right?
I
Economics says they're going to have a third fight. They have to. So they're going to do it. If you want to watch it, just know that Wilder better get better at the boxing game than just trying to throw right haymakers that won't land, because Fury is a lot smarter boxer the second time than he was the first time.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it. Obviously, I don't know if I could stay awake that long.
I don't know how I did. Honest to
didn't.
God. I had some great sliders from a neighbor, a golf friend of mine, Patrick, and his wife, or friend, and I guess wife, friend, whatever. Anyway, beautiful people, and she was cooking up some sliders.
Okay.
What I learned, though, is that it's not a good idea to eat after midnight.
You just
Or
learned that?
at 11:30, 11:45, because sometimes you have issues the next morning. Mm-hmm. It's just late to eat, But God bless them. They hosted, and it was wonderful. Had a great time.
Again, if you want to text the program, it's 352-353-7465. We got some texts here that already rolled in for Steve Russell, and we'll have Steve talking Gator baseball at 8:30. Like I said, JC, it's this baseball team, last year was kind of a somewhat disappointing year. It's probably the most disappointing year they've had under Kevin O'Sullivan. They still made the tournament. They didn't make it out of the regionals there.
Rebuilding.
But they couldn't pitch the baseball last year.
That's right.
Well, it looks like they've gotten the pitch.
Got one
It's still early. The pitching looks great,
but
the bats have heated up. This team has a chance. I think there's
do some damage.
Well, I think there's 10 teams from the SEC ranked in the top 25.
Yeah, it's a great conference, and certainly probably the best in baseball. And I think the ACC is good. Certainly the Big 12 is pretty good. Michigan from the Big 10 actually was in the College World Series final last year. So you never know, right? But I agree with you, man. The Florida team really just did not care where they played these guys. They own Miami. They have just, like you said, say that stat again, QB. You got to say that stat again.
In the last 35 games against the
incredible
Hurricanes and the Semis, the Florida State Seminoles, Florida is 31-4.
Golly. 31-4 against Miami. This is not
Miami
FIU.
Florida
right.
State. Miami and Florida State.
Florida State, right. These are the two Blue Bloods programs along with Florida.
One thing I want to ask Steve, and you may know the answer to this. I don't. Why do we not play a series against Florida State?
Yeah, you better ask Steve. That's a great question. I think they used to, right? Certainly.
Yeah,
I think Jacksonville got involved in this game. And both schools really like going up there for that event.
But the problem with that is you don't get to see the best pitching from either squad.
Not in the middle of the week, right?
Never. Right. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
and that's why they should go to a series, in my opinion.
Right, on the weekend. Well, maybe it has something to do with their conference play. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that they're both in different conferences. So
right, but like instead of having this weekend series against Troy, why couldn't we have had a weekend series against the Semis?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's
throw it out there, and maybe Steve will give you an answer. Hey, by the way, folks, before we get to Steve here in about 6 minutes, I'm looking at numbers. I'm a numbers guy, and the podcast has been on the air for basically 6 weeks now. I think, is that all right? From the beginning of the year until to where we are today. I'm looking at some of these numbers, QB numbers. Mm-hmm. Check this out right here. Post reach on this podcast, number of people who have basically seen the show. Last week, in the last 7 days, 45,000. That's up 132%. In the last 28 days, 78,000 people, up 161% as an audience who've seen this. Now, there's another metric, an analytic, called post-engagement, QB. This is where people click or like or frown or smile or love.
You think anybody's frowning on our
or
show?
do whatever it is. It's called post-engagement. Post-engagement. I'm learning all this analytics stuff. Are you ready for this? The last 7 days, up 156%. That's 7,000. In the last 28 days, 162%. That is 14,000. So in the analytics world, QB, this is massive growth. And who benefits from that? These guys do right here. And well, what's the next one? These guys do, Jordan. Great job. We love our sponsor. Look at these guys. These guys do right here. And they just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. And you're getting numbers. Analytics. It's right there if you don't believe me. I'm not making it up. I can't make it up. I wouldn't know what to make up. I'm new to this, right? The podcast. Mm-hmm. So here we are, QB. A massive growth. Now, obviously, the law of large numbers. You know what that is? Mm-hmm. What is it?
You explain it to us. I know what it is. I just don't know how to explain it.
The law of large numbers means that basically you cannot keep up at these rates.
No, it's going to go down.
Right, but the numbers themselves will get bigger from a post-reach viewpoint and from a post-engagement viewpoint. Those numbers will increase. Percentages will go down because the numbers are getting bigger. But these percentages, 161%, 132%, 162%, 156%. These guys right here, we thank them so much for believing and jumping on board. Look at them right there. Those guys. Mm-hmm. So we're happy.
Hey, so real quick before we get to baseball,
doesn't that excite you?
It does. I wanted to talk about Colorado finally hired a coach.
Yes.
What do you think about the hire? Carl Doral.
I don't know anything about him.
Well, I think he coached. Was he an interim at UCLA at one point?
He might have been.
He's coached a little bit in the NFL.
Football,
but what's interesting is it's like no one wanted that job.
Yeah, well,
Eric Bieniemy took his name
They
out.
don't pay in Colorado. We talked about this last week, if you remember, that the state has a problem with Brent Beard. The state has a problem with salaries because of their laws and because of their budgets and so forth and so on. It's not a high-paying job, which is why I said Bill McCartney's staying there. And wasn't Neuheisel there too?
Yeah.
They didn't make as much money as they did when they left, but they loved being there because of how beautiful Aspen is, or Boulder, and how great the area is. But the fact of the matter is that the university just can't compete with some of these other schools. Michigan State doubled Mel Tucker's salary. They doubled it. There's not one person in America that wouldn't take that. The real tragedy comes from the kids that Mel Tucker told a week before he took the job that he was going to be their coach in the next 4 years, or however long he said he was going to be around. They signed on the dotted line at Colorado, and now they don't have a coach because Mel Tucker had his salary doubled for Michigan State, which is fine for Mel Tucker. I get it, but boy, he's been called a lot of names online, and it's ugly. And then, of course, Michigan State's problem is that they have a lawsuit going on. But their coach, Mark D'Antonio, decided he wanted to hit the road after he got a $4.5 million retention bonus. A week later, he's gone. That retention bonus was written into a contract that he had to honor. The problem is that the idiot lawyers at Michigan State didn't say, well, if you take this money and leave within a year, you have to give some of it back. They didn't write that into the contract, so the guy hits the road after $4.5 million gets deposited into his checking account or savings account. The check clears, and he's gone. That's a problem because he told people there he was going to hang around by accepting that money, and he did just the opposite. So there's a lot of problems, right? But the bottom line is these kids get shafted, and these coaches get rich.
Yeah. Would you like to read what Rick has to say on Facebook Live for you, JC?
Well, JC, thank all us who watch to get the numbers up. Yes, Rick, no question. I'm thanking you. Of course I am. I love that. That's what I just said. These analytics are you, okay? I'm not making these numbers up. These are people that are watching and listening. The folks right here, though, are paying this guy's big 7-figure salary. So that's why we are excited about this right here, Rick. But we love you. Of course, we need you on this show. We need you. We got to do it. Okay? That's why Steve Russell comes on the air, because he knows people like you are watching, and I love it.
All right. Well, we're going to take our second time out. When we come back, Hopefully we'll have Steve Russell talking Gator baseball. We'll be right back.
Timeout! Timeout! Hey, timeout! 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 There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our Gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security, small enough to serve you, large enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Gators Dockside, wings, ribs, seafood, and beer. The best restoration, Masters of Disaster.
Bob in trouble, gets rid of it. Oh, big hit.
Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility.
Our touchdown sponsors are Radware Promotional Materials, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker M.M. Parish, Gator BTW, Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, Miapa Latin Cafe, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Okita America Martial Arts and After School, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, The Keys Grill and Piano Bar, UF Mover Guys, The Digital Mortgage Guy, Adams Ribs, Cloud9 Spa, Wrap Spot, Cold Stone Creamery, Gator Dominoes.
If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the advertise button or call Freddie Wiebe at 352-284-3733.
Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support the show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
Looking, still looking. He's going for the end zone. He's got a touchdown.
Welcome back to Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning. John Cornell, Shane Matthews coming to you from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We're going to go straight to our Titan MRI hotline, and we're joined now by the one and the only Steve Russell from WRUF Sports Scene. You can check him out weekdays from 12 to 2, and also play-by-play with Jeff Cardozo on the Gator Baseball Radio Network. Steve, welcome to the program, my man.
Guys, appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yep.
Steve, what a weekend for Gator Baseball. Let's first, before we get into each game, let's talk about the atmosphere down there in Miami. A lot of hoopla. We all know how the Miami fans are. Were there a lot of Gator fans there this weekend?
There were. Matter of fact, the players get a certain allotment of tickets all the time, for an away series, and there weren't enough to go around. I mean, that's how much people wanted to come to this series. The games were sold out all 3 days. So there were a lot of Gator players that wanted family or friends to come to the game, and they just couldn't get them in because there were so many requests.
Steve, when you look at this last year, I don't want to say it was somewhat a disappointing year for Gator baseball, even though they made the tournament. Had trouble pitching the baseball. It looks like, when you look at the three starters this weekend with Tommy Mace, Lechwich, and Herna Barco, assess how you thought all three pitched.
I thought all three pitched great. Now, I'll say this. I thought Miami coming in was overrated. I didn't think, according to one poll, they were the number one team in the country. Their starting pitching, though, is really good, but they don't hit well. But that said, Florida had a lot to do with that. Mace, look, for Florida to be good again, to be where they normally are, they've always had a Friday night dominator, a Faedo, a Singer, somebody to set the tone in the SEC series. And I think Mace can do that. I think Mace and Leftwich and Barco all pitched great in a starting role. The bullpen, by and large, was good. So that's one of the reasons why they won, because their pitching was good.
Steve, tell me why, in your mind, Florida has lately, here in the last few years, seemed to really take over the series between Miami and Florida State together. There was a statistic that Shane mentioned at the beginning of our show that Florida has won something like 31 out of 35 games against these two teams. Miami overall has a winning record against Florida in the heads-up series, but lately it has been one-sided. What's the biggest contributing factor, do you think, for that?
I'm old enough to remember the way it used to be. And Miami would always beat Florida, it seemed. Yeah. But I think the difference has been twofold. One, Kevin O'Sullivan came here and completely changed the dynamic in recruiting. You know, you for a while there, the thought process was you can't get South Florida kids, or if you did, you know, you weren't going to get the best of the South Florida kids. Well, Florida's proven they can go down there and they can get South Florida kids to come up here and play. So it's hurt Miami recruiting-wise. And secondly, look, Miami's a really good program. They won all those national championships, but the last one was 20 years ago. And with Coach Morris, I don't think he did a good job in recruiting his last few years. I think he just sort of mailed it in. Now, Damari's been there a long time as a player, as an assistant. They are better. He's recruited better, but for whatever the reason, recruiting, I think the way that Miami plays, they've not hit the ball great lately. Florida just, from a pitching standpoint, a defensive standpoint, and a hitting standpoint, has just been better. That's just all there is to it. Better recruits, better players, better coached.
We're speaking with Steve Russell from WRUF Sports Scene here in Gainesville. Let's go back to Saturday night. One strike away, Steve. What were your thoughts before we made that little comeback?
Pretty amazing. And I think that's what you have to have if you're going to be successful or special. You have to compete, you know, the 27 ounce. That's how many you get. You don't get 26. You don't get 23. You get 27. And the fact that Florida didn't quit and Miami's bullpen was a little bit suspect, you know, coming into the series, because, again, their starting pitching is really good. Those are the kinds of things that get you in to host a regional, to perhaps go farther. That's a game Florida could have just said, okay, we're not going to win this game, and we'll try to win tomorrow. They didn't do that. They ended up winning. And I'm going to tell you the other thing it does. It completely demoralizes the other team. That crowd, which was just itching to get behind that team, didn't get a chance to do it.
When you look at a couple of guys that have been hot at the plate, and when you look at Jordan Butler, he doesn't really have a position. He plays a little bit of everything, but they're fine. If you can hit the baseball, they're going to find a place for you in the lineup. Talk a little bit about Jordan Butler and the hot start and the hot weekend that Jacob Young had down there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jacob Young is probably the most unsung player on this team because he's not flashy. He's not a power hitter. He doesn't hit mammoth home runs. He just sticks his nose in there as a hitter and does a great job. He runs the bases well, and he's a good defender in the outfield, and he can play multiple positions. He can play second base. He can play right field. He can play left field, or he can even play center field. But Young is probably Florida's hottest hitter now. And, you know, they've got him hitting in the 5-hole. He's not your traditional 5-hole hitter. You know, that usually is a power position, a guy that hits home runs. But you know what? He drives in runs. He drove in a few over the weekend. He's had a terrific series. And, look, when you hit, you find your way in the lineup, and that's why Butler was in there the other day. He got a chance to come off the bench and hit, got a chance to start yesterday, only went 1 for 4, but he had a key hit in the game, and he had some key hits earlier in the series. So, you know, that DH position, I think, will fluctuate a little bit, but if he keeps hitting, he'll find a way to play him.
We got a text here on the Titan MR text line. It said, could you ask Steve if he and Jeff got treated any better from the Miami folks than in the years past?
It wasn't bad, actually. And the reason is because they didn't get a chance to be front runners.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens.
Right.
You know, when you go there and if your team is winning, they don't say a thing to you. But if they're winning, if they get on top, if things go right for them, they're tough to deal with. But they didn't ever get a chance to do that. And what's great about this is not just the fact that Florida swept, but the way they did it.
Yeah.
They came from behind. You know, Miami thought they had a game one, and they didn't. That really stuck it to Miami and their fans.
Well, it was, and in that 5-run inning after they almost lost on Saturday night. That I know you explained how the air was taken out of the place, but what were the faces of the fans? I mean, it had to be something that they just didn't see coming, and I guess that's quite satisfying for some of those Florida people that were there. You must have loved that.
Oh, well, look, there's not many teams. There's not many teams I don't like, even Florida State. Okay, I have a lot of respect for what Mike Martin did there, and that rivalry is one, I think, where the teams respect one another. That's not the case. Miami just doesn't like Florida. And I think that rivalry is worse than it is with Florida State. They just don't like Florida, but they can't say a thing because Florida has dominated this series. You know, it's the 4th time under Kevin O'Sullivan they've swept Miami. And that was unheard of before he came here. That's how much he's changed the dynamic.
It's true. And I think that some of that anger or some of that acrimony bleeds from those days in the football. You're old enough to remember, as am I, how Florida and Miami's football rivalry once turned to hell when the flop happened and whatever. Miami's never forgiven Florida for some of the things from the football world, and I think it's bled on into the other sports as well. But you mentioned, Steve, the Florida State team, and we used to have weekend series with those teams. Why is it that they play Florida State just once? What are the dynamics, and how does the Jacksonville get involved in that? And I was just curious why we don't play Florida State on the weekends anymore.
Yeah, I mean, with Miami, obviously, it's distance. You can't do what you're doing with Florida State because of the travel distance. I think the powers that be thought this was obviously a really good series. So let's give fans of both schools a chance at a, quote, neutral, unquote, site to go and see the team play. And you can't do that if you play, a 3-game series. So that's why they kind of split it up. There's parts of it I don't like, riding a bus twice to go to Tallahassee and then go to Jacksonville is kind of a pain. You'd rather play them one time. Yeah. But when you get to Jacksonville, fellas, and you see the place packed, it's a raucous, it's a really good crowd. They cheer for both teams as opposed to cheer against the other one. That's kind of fun to see. So it when you get there and you see that, it's worthwhile to have the series be the way it is.
Steve, let's talk a little bit about Josh Rivera.
Yeah,
he's only the second freshman to ever start at shortstop for Sully. Had a tremendous weekend. Talk about his talent level.
First of all, good kid. He's a really good kid. Very, very humble and is a worker. And he wants to get better. He made a play yesterday, guys, that veteran shortstops don't make. There was a ball hit in the hole to the third base side. And a lot of guys will try to backhand that ball and then sort of jump and throw the ball across. He went and actually circled the ball so that when he got to the ball, his body was square to first base and then threw the guy out by an eyelash. And that's a play you don't see veteran guys making. He did. So he's really advanced defensively. I think the question with him was, will he hit? And his first series, his first few games, he struck out a lot. Didn't look good. All of a sudden, he's found it. He really keeps his nose on the ball. He doesn't chase. He hits strikes, and he has surprising power for his size. Had a tremendous series down there. Really, really good.
We got a Facebook Live here. Will Barco continue as the Sunday starter, or will Sully give some other guys some of those Sunday opportunities?
I think Barco will be the guy. And he's another guy I want to talk about, fellas, because, when I watched him during the fall, he just looked different to me than most freshmen. He seemed way more poised. Nothing seemed to faze him. Yesterday, he didn't have the great control, but look, he pitched well enough. He only allowed 1 run and 2 hits and 5 1/3. So he's a guy who I think is going to learn how to pitch at the college level. I think, these guys in high school are all really good. You can blow balls by hitters, not to really pitch to them. He's learning how to pitch, but he's got 3 pitches. And when he throws those for strikes and gets ahead, he'll be very, very difficult to deal with.
We have a Facebook Live here from Todd. He said, ask Steve where he thinks the new baseball facility will rank against other programs nationally.
Great question. I can't speak for nationally because I haven't been to those, but I can speak to the SEC. Right now, if you take Florida's facility, only Tennessee's and Missouri's are worse. And that's just the fact. So now you put Florida up there, it'll rank with South Carolina, Arkansas, whatever. It'll rank right up there. And it was sorely needed. Shaner, you and I have talked a bunch about, facilities and all that kind of stuff. And Sully has recruited around that. Obviously, look at the recruiting class he just brought in. And his 2021 class is going to be phenomenal if all those guys decide to come to school. So now you add in the facility, and now you add on all the amenities these kids get these days. Sky's the limit.
Speaking of Coach O'Sullivan, even before the postseason success, he's always had this ability to recruit. What's his secret, or what do you see in his ability to bring these pitchers to Florida in spite of some of the things you talked about with the facility?
Well, number one, there's results. I mean, look, what do players want to do? If you're a football player, you want to go to the championship. You want to win SEC. Well, Sully's done that. He's got a proven track record of that. Secondly, he's the pitching coach de facto. Look at the players he's put in the big leagues or who are going to be in the minor leagues now and getting ready to go to the big leagues, a Brady Singer, a Faedo, a guy like that. So pitchers especially know. Look at the development, and then they get to the big leagues. They get there quickly in some cases too. So that's number one. And then number two, you want to go to Omaha. You want to win an SEC. Well, look at what he's done in getting his teams to Omaha. And last year, in a quote down year, they still make a regional. Happened a few years ago when they went to the regional in Indiana and lost. But other than those 2 years, since Sully's really established himself, look where the program is. Kids want to go where they're going to get coached, where they're going to go to the big leagues or have a chance to go to the big leagues and get a chance to win. They have all those with coming here.
We're speaking with Steve Russell from WRUF. Final question for me, Steve. Gators sit at 8-0 right now. Any surprises so far early in the year for you?
Well, yes. A bit of a negative thing has been how much Florida has struck out. But again, they faced really good pitching. I'm telling you, Miami's pitching. The kid they faced yesterday, Saccone, I think is going to be a first-round guy. They did a pretty good job against him in 5 innings. They got his pitch count up and got him out of the game. He threw 95 pitches in 5 innings. And the other 2 guys they threw were good. But Florida struck out 14 times Friday and Saturday and 15 times yesterday and still won the game. You don't often see that. But that's how, the way baseball is now. You see it in the big leagues. Strikeouts are part of it. Because pitching is so dominant, you just have to find ways to work around that. And that's why sometimes it's the home run, sometimes it's the 3-run homer that wins you games. But I think they've got to do a little better job of putting the ball in play.
Steve, did you have to calm Cardozo down at all this weekend? Because I was listening as I was driving around, and I could hear, we'd strike somebody out. It just sounded a little more extra in there when he called.
Ex-players love this.
Well remember now, Jeff played against them when Miami used to beat Florida pretty regularly. Mm-hmm. And we've had some run-ins over the years. You have to understand where they put us. We're outdoors.
Yeah, which makes no sense.
Literally outdoors. It rained. We got rained on Saturday. Our stuff got all, damp and wet. And literally you can reach your hand out and touch a fan. That's how close we are. And in fact, one guy had an umbrella when it started to rain. I had to stand up so I could see the field, and the 2 people were standing right in front of Jeff all game, and he had to sort of look around him to be able to make the call. So there's no love lost there. I can promise you.
I mean,
no love lost.
Isn't he from Stewart? Didn't he grow up down there?
Is.
So he was indoctrinated to Miami baseball probably at a very young age.
Oh, he was. He was when he was little kid. He was a big Hurricanes fan. He has a picture with the mascot.
Oh boy, yeah.
So, but he got out of that quickly.
Well, Steve, we appreciate you taking your time. I know it was a long weekend, a great weekend for Gator baseball, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
We'll talk to you, fellas. Thanks, you.
Steve.
All right, Steve Russell from WRUF joined us on the Titan MRI hotline.
It's third world facility.
It's a dump
It's
down
unbelievable. That's a private school. You would think they might be able to budget a few bucks to the great baseball program and stadium that they have,
Vanderbilt.
right?
Vanderbilt is a private school, and they have a really nice little baseball facility.
And really, it's difficult because they're right up there against the football stadium. There's not much room on that campus, but they've turned it into a desirable location to watch a game, which is finally what the University of Florida has decided to do. So I'm really thankful. And I saw a picture, QB. I don't know if I'm sure you've seen this. It's nothing new to you. But I saw some pictures of what the football facility is going to like once that baseball facility is demolished.
I haven't seen that. Can you share it with me?
What?
I haven't seen the
Yes,
picture.
you have, you schmo.
Everybody in America has seen that.
No, but I mean, I saw another one. I saw a much more updated one, and unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
So this baseball thing, and heads. I saw Jeremy and Scott Strickland the other night out, and I didn't approach. I said hi to Jeremy and made fun of his Red Sox, but I didn't say anything to Scott. I've already met him, but what he is to facilities is really important because of his, I think, attention to the detail of what is required now for recruiting and for comfort. Fans' comfort sometimes gets overlooked. It shouldn't, because you're asking people to spend their discretionary money watching your product and your presentation at whatever sport it is. They've done it with the basketball arena. Love what they got there going. And certainly there will be some upgrades to Florida Field and the stadium there. But this facility is going to be second to none, and it'll come at the expense of McKeithen Stadium, which it's time for. I mean, it's outlived its usefulness, and certainly the softball facility has been dramatically upgraded, and I know Coach Walton is thrilled about that. So this is the kind of thing we have to see, and we are seeing it, and the current leadership and administration there running the show at the athletic department should be commended for finally getting on ball and getting this thing done so that Florida can be competitive with some of these other schools that are spending loads of money. It seems like, and I could be wrong about this number, so don't quote me on this, but $40 to $45 million goes to each school from these TV contracts. It is amazing how much more money and how much more resources are available, and they have to spend it on their departments and on their facilities without running up the debt figure too badly in order to compete with, because everybody else is. It is an arms race. So.
Yeah, and a lot of the money, too, was raised through the Gator Giving Day, which we
That
talked
was big.
about. Over
So
$25 million
There was a anonymous $5 million gift
to the football program.
to the football program itself. And so this is
Was that you, JC?
It may have been somebody we know.
Did you get $5 million to Alabama's program?
Oh, no. They don't need my money. Although they got some of it, but they don't need it. Believe me, it's just great to see the support going into these programs, because this is how these kids will be able to compete and win. And that's really what the name of the game is, because if you can't do that, what's the point, right? So this is important, and I think it's great that the leadership has finally figured that out.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see when the new baseball park opens up next year. You know, the attendance, because
Oh, it'll go up.
I sure hope it does.
Has
but
to.
You would think.
It has to, because a lot of the problem is comfort. It's basically saying to you folks, hey, we've got more to offer you. And not only that, but they're going to start serving adult beverages, is what they should have done 12 years ago. But instead of that sugar-filled garbage that they sell. And it's okay because that's not alcoholic. No, that's not okay. So I think it's great that they're starting to move in to this century. And I think it's great that Florida baseball is going to be fun to go to watch, because not that it isn't now, but the comfort of that facility, he said it. There are two places worse than Florida in a 14-school league. That's not acceptable if you're a University of
What
Florida.
do you say,
person.
Missouri and Tennessee?
Missouri and Tennessee says they just don't care, right? So that means Vanderbilt's already passed Florida.
Well, Vanderbilt won the
had
national title
nothing.
last year.
Great, but before that, they had zilch, zero, nada, and they had to win it for the first time at some point, right? So they didn't have it before they won it, so they then won it. But it wasn't because of that; it was after that fact. And then I just think it's, if
What was
Vanderbilt
after
can
the
be a
fact?
better facility. Well, after the fact that they won it, then they started really sticking the money into.
No,
the
they won
program.
it last year. They
They
haven't-
won it twice.
Yeah, but
They've been 3 times.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's before
gotcha.
they won it the first time, the place was right there, literally behind that football erector set of a stadium, and it's still there. But they've done things to it and put money into it.
Yeah, they made it very, very nice, and they got a good squad. No question about it.
Yeah, they can pitch, man. That kid Rocker, is that his name? Rocker.
Tracy Rocker's son.
I mean, he's got Major League written all over him. So I don't know. Vanderbilt, really? Vanderbilt? So good for them, and good for the SEC. That helps the league, and that helps the attention
Yeah,
of the
SEC
league.
softball and baseball.
It's good stuff.
Very, very, very good.
All
Well,
right.
that's going to be the end of the show today. Today's show is a wrap, brought to you by WrapSpot. A vehicle wrap from WrapSpot will give your business years of brand recognition and increased sales. Call WrapSpot today. We'll
Thank
see
you
you
to
tomorrow.
Steve Russell for joining us. See you
Yes,
tomorrow.
indeed.